Welcome to Suncoast FYI. I'm your host, Nancy O'Neill. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to you all. Today I'm joined by Dr. Bill Woodson from New College, Judy Jankowski from United Way, and SNN's very own Marco Lamano right here on Suncoast FYI. Recently, the state of Florida passed legislation to allow the enforcement of sound ordinances as it applies to loud music from motor vehicles. Here with me now to discuss this nuanced topic is Dr. Bill Woodson, a former dean at New College of Florida and a member of the Sarasota NAACP. Dr. Woodson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nancy.
This is a problem that we know has been ongoing for a number of years, okay?
As long as I can remember.
Why is this matter of loud stereo noises a concern now, or more of a concern now?
Well, there are members of the community that really feel like this has been something that's impacting their quality of life.
Absolutely.
And they're being very vocal about that, and it's a real issue. I think what's been challenging is how best to respond, and what I'm encouraged by is that the community members are coming together, they're in conversation with each other and with police to come up with solutions that work for everyone.
Okay. Now, you said that this has been on the books as far as an ordinance, sound ordinance.
Well, there's a long history of
goes.
sound ordinances. There's actually multiple ordinances, but for the last 10 years until this summer, there was not an ordinance specific to controlling loud car stereos in the city or in the state.
Okay, thank you. Now, again, who is being impacted? I think all of us at some point are, but where do you find this most of it being an issue?
Well, I think, to be fair, you can go almost anywhere in town and you can occasionally hear a car going by with bass booming that's rattling speakers. But it's people in the Newtown community that I've been engaged with who've really been very vocal about how this is actually impacting their quality of life. So certainly it's an issue everywhere, but if you're talking about a residential area where people are trying to sleep, trying to get ready for the next day, that's where it's most acute.
Okay. Now, we mentioned the police. How are they determining how to respond to this issue?
Well, I think something that's actually encouraging to me, given the nuanced nature of the issue, is that the police has really been very interested in hearing from the community as to what kinds of responses would the community be in support of. And that's great news, because frankly there's a long history where law enforcement and certain communities, particularly communities of color, don't feel like policing has been responsive to their needs. There is a segment that feels that they're frustrated by the lack of more pointed response, arrests, seizure of cars, etc. But that's not a response that has broad support in the community. So the police have been taking a more measured approach, and they've actually partnered with the NAACP to make the first step to increase community awareness of the law, because the law that's on the books today, the one that you made reference to, it is a new law. It was just passed at the state level in July of this year, or came into effect in July.
Okay, so will the police, do you stop somebody in the car and tell them to turn their music down? Will they be giving them warnings? How is this actually going to be impactful for our communities?
Well, again, the police have really not gone much farther beyond, I think there were a couple of monitoring efforts back in the late summer, but at this point they're really asking and working with the NAACP and as well as with other organizations in the community. There's the Amaryllis Park Neighborhood Association, there's the North County Community Coalition, and seeking input in terms of what types of responses would be aligned with the concerns of the community. And so at this point the focus has been on information and on using digital signage, flyers,
There you go.
working with community leaders
Sure.
to get the word out that there is a law in the books, and that in addition that we should be concerned about the adverse impact that loud car music has on our community neighbors.
On our community neighbors, our pets, our children, and ourselves, whether
Yeah,
we're
the occupants of those cars must
Right.
be, are probably going to lose their hearing early.
Yes,
as
I
a
mean,
result
we
of this.
don't want to do that any sooner than we have to. And
Absolutely.
I think, you know, the point that you made about having the digital signs, because people need to be aware of it, whether it's, you know, somebody in a car or somebody that they know that might be doing this. And again, in your community, you want to enjoy a certain type of you know, quality of life and peace after a certain hour at night. And a lot of times, you know, and not to be judgmental, you may not know that you're really impacting your neighbors when you are,
That's right.
as well as yourself and your family.
right.
So again, if people want to weigh in on this issue and participate, where can they go to have their voice be heard, sir?
They they can always contact Sarasota Police Department for more information, or if they're aware of a particular noise concern. The NAACP is going to continue to work with other community organizations to collect perspective and feedback, and frankly, we're still looking for some solutions. I'll tell you as an example. There's people are familiar with red light cameras and speed cameras.
Sure.
There's some new technology that's being developed and being piloted in Nashville and in Miami that works on a similar principle, but is triggered by loud exhaust. And so we've asked the city to look at, can we be a part of a study to utilize that kind of technology to identify cars that are playing their stereos too loud. We've asked about, can we create a database where there's, say, known offenders that can be, you know, we can capture their information and maybe engage them in a way that's perhaps safer than a street side, you know, traffic stop.
Sure.
So we're trying to think creatively about how to engage this. We're also encouraging community members to, if they know someone who habitually plays their stereos too loud, to think about just speaking to your neighbor.
Sure, absolutely. Be direct and just say that, you know, there is a new law out there, and I just want to make you aware of it. So
Absolutely.
one-on-one's a good thing to do, right?
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be. And I think changing our mindset to where we are more conscious of the fact that we are part of a community and that we should care about the impact that our behavior has on our friends and neighbors. I think that can get lost, and I think we're really trying to resurface that.
Great. That's a great way to end. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the chance to share.
Coming up, Judy Jankowski from the United Way, so please stay tuned. For more than 135 years, United Way has used its global reach and local presence to build stronger and more equitable communities where everyone can thrive. Joining me now is Judy Jankowski, the Vice President of Philanthropy with United Way, to tell us about all the work they do right here on the Suncoast. Well, welcome, Judy, thank you. And you've said you've been with United Way for how long now?
Oh, I have about 15 years experience with United Way in different areas, so I'm happy to be here now serving the Suncoast.
Oh, thank you. So what area in particular does the United Way serve here, Judy?
Sure, the United Way of South Sarasota County serves the communities of Osprey, Nokomis, Laurel, Venice, Inglewood, and Northport.
Wow, so you have a large territory to
Yes,
cover.
we do.
Right? Oh,
Yes,
my
we
goodness.
do.
So what programs and services do you provide to all of those communities?
Well, the United Way has become a modern United Way, and we still provide allocations to other nonprofits that their programs fit our demographics, but we also provide direct services to the community, such as our volunteer income tax assistance program, which we need volunteers for.
Wow.
And we help people put together their tax returns And we target families or individuals with an income annually of $60,000 or less. However, our emergency funds have become increasingly important of late.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what type of funds, if any, do you still have left available for Hurricane Ian relief?
There are plenty of funds available. I find myself speaking in terms of prior to Ian and post-Ian. And so prior to Ian, we had an emergency fund that helped with eviction prevention and homeless mitigation, besides other emergency services. Post-Ian, we have multiple funds, thanks to the generosity of the community, that we are able to help individuals who have never needed help before.
And that's, thank you, because we all know that it touched so many people that we live in the community with, so thank you.
Well, you are welcome. It is our pleasure. We focus on what we call the ALICE population, which people say, what does that mean? Well, it's low to moderate income individuals and families, and the acronym is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Yet Employed.
Wow.
So these are working people struggling to make ends meet.
And it gets harder and harder, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So you have funds for other programs as well. What are those, Judy?
So right now we have focused on the hurricane relief, and we are fielding hundreds of calls a day, people walking in, no shoes, people have lost everything. So our entire focus at this time is using those emergency funds, thank you to our generous donors again, but the need gets greater every day, to find them housing, temporary or permanent, utility bills, preventing them from being evicted, food,
clothing, everything. When you think, like you said, shoes, my gosh, basic needs.
A lot of the seniors who live on Social Security, I have several individuals, one young lady who I think she was 86, and she still had this beautiful red hair, and her clothing was old, but it was beautiful, and her rent had gone from $600 to $2,600, and she had 30 days to either move out or accept it. And that was prior to Ian. So the need has just jumped unbelievably high. So we still need people to advocate for us. We still need folks to volunteer for us. But the need for funding, it just grows every day.
Okay. Now you have some campaigns and other events coming up. So what are those, and how can our viewers help you?
Well, thank you for asking. Right now we have launched our year-end campaign, and that will continue through January and February. And again, we look forward to continued generosity from the community. As far as events, we have a group that we call Women United, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for that. It is a group of women who have banded together to hold many fundraisers, and then that fund goes to help folks for other needs. And so it's wonderful. We have our launch in January for the 2023. We have our large fundraiser called Access to Alice in April. And then throughout the year, as I say, we'll have many events. We'll have another fundraising effort by mail in the fall. And then our campaign kickoff, which we are very fortunate to have the public's employees run a campaign, Sarasota County Schools, and many other banks and businesses that just raise funds through chili cook-offs or whatever. So that's what we have going so far.
All right. Where can our viewers go to find out more details and dates?
Yes. So our website is our initials. So uwssc.org. And all the information will be listed there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you, and I know there are so many people that you've changed their lives, and so many more you will.
Thank you. We're grateful to you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Up next on Suncoast FYI, SNN's own Marco Lamano, so don't go anywhere. SNN's Weather Authority team works diligently to keep you up to date on the Suncoast weather. Here with me now is meteorologist Marco Lamano to talk about other matters outside the world of weather. Morning, Marco, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to be here. I
Thank
remember when I did my first holiday promo that you were also involved in. We were talking about the end of 2016. And now, what year is it?
Oh my gosh.
And what year is it going to be?
Well, I'm glad it's going to be 2023.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a great year for everybody.
I think as long as we take it slow,
Yep.
I think the world's our oyster.
It's ready. It's out there. Let's do it, right?
Let's do it.
So, Marco, you're involved with a campaign that involves mental illness.
Yes.
And I think that it's a continuing program that SNN continues to air for us. And you always end with "You are not alone."
Yes.
And tell our viewers how that all ties in with us, please.
Well, I started and recorded the PSAs that we see regularly on SNN with NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. I recorded them late 2020, but we've never really stopped airing them because while spring, despite popular belief, is actually the most active time for deaths by suicide, the winter months can be very, very difficult for people, especially if you're comparing yourself to others who are having a very happy holiday. And I brought some stats from the CDC, and for every death by suicide, you have 275 people who seriously consider it. For every death, you have 27 who self-report an attempt. There are 8 emergency department visits related to it for each death, and 4 hospitalizations per attempt. That's from the CDC. So there are many people in the same boat, which also means that it's important to be open and realize that you're not the only one going through this. There are many people who look like they have it all who go through mental illness, who go through anxiety or depression or a psychosis, et cetera, et cetera. And it's good to know that you're not alone. There is help. Both the NAMI helpline, the new 988 number are all good sources. And another thing that I think is probably the most important thing is that if you're open about your mental illness, then people are able to help. Because if nobody knows what you're going through, how can they help for a problem they don't know exists? And so we continue to do that to remind people that there is help and there is a way forward.
Yeah, there is help, and I think, like you said, whether it's a friend that you talk to or a professional, I think just opening up to someone, so as you said, they know what you're dealing with, because so many people just suffer silently, and I think that's a big part of the problem.
People can be less judgmental than you think they're going to be.
Yeah, yeah. So, on another note, you had the successful Band of the Week season. Can you tell our viewers about that?
Yes, I've been going since 2016, and I think that there are 2 themes that really stuck out to me this year for the bands we covered. The first theme was still COVID. Last year, for 2021, all the kids coming back, COVID was a recurring theme in a lot of the stories. But in 2022, it still is. Some middle schools pretty much broke down their band program during COVID. Some schools were not able, or most schools, if not all of them, weren't able to advertise during COVID, advertise their programs to middle schools. So you had particularly Northport and Lakewood Ranch, whose numbers have dwindled, even though in competitions and showcases they're still doing fantastic, even better actually than last year.
Okay.
The second theme was bands realizing their potential. Charlotte High School, straight superiors in their marching performance assessment, superiors in their concert assessment earlier in 2022. So them, for many years, they've not been able to achieve that. And 2022, they really did, both spring and fall, for 2 different sets of seniors. So it was some fantastic stuff, and it really made for some great stories.
So, but tying into that, I think you mentioned that the programs also help with their mental health, and
Yes.
especially during COVID when they were still actually able to do it via Zoom
Yeah.
and get together. So can
So-
you finish
so-
up with that, please?
I've talked to several, one in particular in Lemon Bay High in Englewood. The drum major actually opened up about his mental illnesses and that there are many people who have checked upon him during his 4 years in the band. And what he said was that people realizing that there are people who care about you and want to know how you're doing when you're doubting your self-worth has really helped him throughout high school. And I've spoken to people who came from a broken home or went through struggles, and the band program, and specifically the teacher support and the camaraderie with the other students, have helped tremendously as far as self-worth and knowing that they're not alone, to go
not
back to
alone.
that.
Yep, and-
So it's a beautiful thing for so many students, and that's why we like to cover them too.
Awesome. And to wrap things up, because it also ties in with music and your ballroom dancing, which you got involved in again now that COVID's over. How does that relate to mental health and mental well-being?
Yeah. Well, first I'd like to say it felt great to perform in front of an audience again. And
You're so shy. I mean, really, I can't
oh
imagine.
yeah, so bashful, but you guys have been working on me. And you know, in particular, ballroom dance helps so much with your confidence. I mean, it's good for your health anyway.
Sure.
But it has been shown that because you're making split-second decisions, it's good for your mental well-being. It helps your mind age well, and it does help with your overall mood. And I find that, for example, you know, I have anxiety. Fortunately, I don't really suffer for it a lot. You know, ever since I've taken my medication daily. I mean, this has been like a 13-year thing now. You know, I don't really have a lot of anxiety episodes, but when I do, being around people actually helps reduce my anxiety. For some people, it's the opposite. For some people, they need to be away, and everybody's different. But I will say that anytime I've had an anxiety attack or anxiety issues, ballroom was phenomenal, no matter what my day was.
Between the dancing and the music, it kind of just puts you in another zone. Right?
Music and mental illness, you talk about a not all in all complete solution, but definitely some great medicine.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for sharing, and I'm wishing you and your family a healthy, happy, and peaceful New Year, my friend.
You as well. Thank you,
Thank
Nancy.
you. We hope you enjoyed the show today, and thank you for joining us on Suncoast FYI. All of us at SNN are wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a safe and happy New Year. I'm Nancy O'Neill, and we'll see you next week on Suncoast FYI. Got off to a little bit bump, but